Hello again and welcome to the communication unit. We've been working on the reading outcome and so far we've examined the purpose of an article, we've looked at who the likely reader might be, we've identified main points and learned how to summarise them, and we've learned how to identify supporting details and explain how these support the main points. This time we're going to have a look at evaluating. So we need to learn how to evaluate a text and be able to say whether we think it was effective or not. And there are a number of different things that we can examine to work this out. So the first thing that we have to do is an analysis. An analysis is really where you break down the text into different elements and examine them. And that allows you to draw conclusions about how well the writer has done in convincing you about the points that he's made. There are lots of different things that we can examine. So, for example, we could look at bias for a start. Is the piece biased or not? And that just means, does it have both sides of the argument, or is only one side of the argument presented by the author? So that's something that we could analyse. Another thing is possibly the sources. So if there are sources used by the author in the article or the text, are they relevant sources? Are they people who, if it's a quote, are those people who have qualification to comment on the subject that the author is writing about? If it's a web page, does the web page really support what the writer is saying, or is it about something that's unrelated? So you can analyse the sources and you can draw conclusions as to whether you think those are effective or not. Another thing that you could look at is the pictures, photographs that are used in the article. Do the photographs support what the author is talking about? Do they illustrate the story? Are they effective, or are they maybe unrelated? So you could analyse those. You could also analyse any graphs or infographics in the same way, and look to see if the data that's presented is relevant to what the author is actually talking about. Another thing that you could analyse is the structure of the article. The structure is the order in which an author has presented his information. Typically you should have an introduction, and then in the main body of the piece the information should be presented in a logical order so that it flows well and it's easy to follow and navigate. And at the end there should be a conclusion. So these are things that you can look for when you're analysing the structure. Sometimes if an article is difficult to understand and you have to keep going back and rereading, the structure is the issue because it's not flowing well and the paragraphs aren't linked, so it makes it more difficult for the reader to understand the author's points. Another area that you could analyse is the layout. Now sometimes people mix the layout up with the structure, but the layout's quite different. The layout is actually how information and colour and graphics and pictures have been arranged on the page. Think of a magazine layout where you have pictures and text. So when you're analysing the layout, the questions to ask yourself are, is it attractive? Is it easy to navigate? Has the text been displayed in a way that means that it's easy to follow in columns, or has it been broken up too much? So have a look at the layout and see how easy you find it is to follow and find your way through, and also is it attractive and is it appropriate to the subject? So those are some of the things that you might analyse. The other thing, probably the final thing that we'll talk about just now, and there are lots more, but the final thing to maybe think about is analysing the language that's used. Sometimes authors will use emotive language. Emotive language is language like awful and terrible and devastating. And that language is used to elicit an emotional response in the reader. So have a look at the actual words that the author is using. Are they negative words? Are they positive words? Are they emotive words? What language is he using? The other thing you could look at is the tone of the language that's being used. So maybe it's a formal tone, and you maybe find that more often in professional journals and broadsheet newspapers. And it'll sound more serious. So that's one thing you could look for, but you might actually find as well that the tone of the language is informal, so it might be more conversational, it might be entertaining and funny, and you're more likely to find that maybe in a magazine article. So what you're going to do is you're going to analyse all these different areas, and then you're going to present your opinion as an evaluation. However, when you present your opinion, you have to do what the author has done. And this is an important thing to remember. So make your point. That's where you say what you think. And then explain it. So say why you think that. And then give an example. And the example is the supporting detail. It might be a quote from the actual text to try and support what you're saying. Or it might be statistics or data. So remember P, point, say what you think. E, explain why you think that. And E, again, example, give an example to support the point that you're making. So work your way through all the areas that you've analysed and evaluate them, and you should be able to produce a great evaluation. Good luck!